So the renal corpuscle is this top part. They tend to sit in the cortex, and they have the renal tubule, which are all the other parts coming down from it. So we're going to look specifically at this renal corpuscle. So in a close-up view, we can see more of the cell types in the renal corpuscle. We said that the little ball of capillaries inside of it, or rather the big ball of capillaries, is called the glomerulus or the glomerular capillaries. The arteriole entering and giving rise to the glomerular capillaries is called the afferent arteriole with an A, and the efferent arteriole with an E is exiting the renal corpuscle from the glomerular capillary bed. So the glomerulus is a mass of capillaries fed by the afferent arteriole draining into the efferent arteriole. This renal corpuscle has a capsule known as the glomerular or the Bowman's capsule that the mouse is running around right now. And we call it to have a visceral and a parietal layer. We call the outside that the mouse is running around the parietal layer or the Bowman's capsule. But they consider the visceral layer the surface of this glomerular capillary bed. And what are on it are special cells. You can see them colored here in orange, but they're called podocytes. If you think of a podiatrist, this is a foot doctor. They're podocytes because they have foot-like processes on them that wrap around the capillaries, and we'll see that affects what is filtered into this space. So what happens is a glomerulus, like a regular capillary bed, will have filtration, and that filtrate will go out. We call it filtrate into this capsule, Bowman's capsule, which continues down into the renal tubule in the proximal tubule, the first part of it. So the filtrate is collected in this area. So if we look at a scanning electron microscope figure, we see those podocytes with foot-like processes. The feet coming off of the cells called podocytes on this visceral layer of the corpuscle on the glomerular capillary beds, these are called pedicles. So think of pedicles. They are foot processes. And they're simple squamous cells forming that parietal layer. So this renal corpuscle is lined by a very thin Bowman's capsule of just simple squamous epithelium. So these glomerular capillaries have fenestrations, which are just little holes punched in the membrane that makes it very leaky. So the fluid that comes out from the glomerulus that's filtered out there, we call that filtrate, is going to be slightly different than fluid that comes out of regular capillary beds in the body from a lot of systemic capillaries, and that we're going to filter large amounts of things, but we're not going, such as glucose, amino acids, nutrients, wastes, but we're not going to filter out large and medium-sized proteins because of these specialized cells called podocytes. So if we look at this slide, we can see a little bit more. This is the fenestrated capillary, and that prevents every part of your blood plasma from coming through except for those large blood cells. Now, we always have a basal lamina supporting our epithelial cells, even though that fenestrated capillary is just simple squamous. So that basal lamina, that area of connective tissue underneath it, prevents large plasma proteins like albumin from coming through. So albuminuria would be abnormal, or large amounts of proteins all the time should be abnormal in urine. And then what makes this very different from a normal capillary bed are, again, these podocytes, as you can see here with the pedicles. And notice the pedicles, the foot-like processes that line this capillary, have what we call filtration slits between them. And what these filtration slits do is they prevent also medium-sized proteins. So proteinuria, albuminuria, large amounts of those in urine should be abnormal. So notice also there is a structure called the juxtaglomerular apparatus. As we've said previously, juxta means next to, so it just means a structure next to the medulla. There is a thickened part of macula densa cells, we call it, on part of the ascending limb of the nephron loop that comes up and makes contact with cells on the afferent arteriole called juxtaglomerular cells. And we'll see that those are very important in what we call renal autoregulation, which we will look at very soon.